And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 6, episode 5. We are well into the 2025-26 Division 3 basketball season now. And one of my favorite parts of the season is what I consider to be the best tournament of the season. And that is the Great Lakes Invitational. So no better person to go to than the founder and the tournament director. These are very fancy titles. That is Mr. Ryan Whitnable. He's a proud alum of Marietta. He's a D3 guy, and he has created a doozy of a tournament. Ryan, you were there in Washington, Pennsylvania, on the campus of Washington and Jefferson. How is everything going on the eve of GLI number 8?
Well, thanks for having me, Bob. And yeah, things are in full swing here. You might be able to hear some basketballs and some music behind me. We've got already our third practice of the day going. So things are in full swing here. I've got a full day here in the gym. We've got 7 teams practicing. We've got an eighth coming tomorrow. And yeah, we're ready to roll here.
Off the air, we were talking about the backdrop there in the gym, and I love anything that has to do with like old gyms. So apparently Washington and Jefferson, whatever their old gym was, it looks like part of that floor is directly behind you. Is that what that is behind you?
Yeah, so if you've been to the gym here, they've got this great alumni space up here above the court where they, do some catering events and for some VIPs. And one of the great things, and I'll try to swing around here and show you, they've got
That's
part of the
cool.
old floor before they renovated it here as the backdrop for this room. And it's just a really nice touch. And as somebody who appreciates the history and going through the trophy rooms at each D3 school I go to, I thought this was a really nice touch for this area up here.
I love everything that's do like those old gyms and some of the schools that still have the old gyms on campus. Like at IWU, the old gym is still there. It's just been repurposed into a student center, but you could still see kind of the bones of the gym, which is cool. So I love all that stuff. I was looking back and when we had you on the QCast the first time, and it was season 1. So it was the very first season. And it's so long ago that as I pulled it up today, we even look a lot different. I hate to say, we look a lot younger.
Yeah.
We look a lot younger during season 1 than we do here in season 6. And just because it's been so long, Ryan, I want you to remind people what this Great Lakes Invitational, like how it came about. Just do a little overview of how you came up with this concept, why you did, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have to thank Mike DeWitt at Ohio Wesleyan a little bit. They had an event, a decade or so ago called the Great Lakes Challenge. And it was a 4-team event where he would bring in, him, obviously, Ohio Wesleyan and one of the other teams in the Columbus area from that same conference. Some years it was Wittenberg, sometimes it was Denison. And then he'd bring in a couple of OAC teams, maybe Otterbein and Capital since they're
Sure.
right next door. And those years that he was doing it towards the end, it got to the point where the event was a little lopsided, right? Ohio Wesleyan was real good, a decade ago. Wittenberg had some really strong years,
Yeah.
and they were always playing. It seemed like the bottom of the OAC for that period of time. And I, in my head, just kind of thought, wouldn't this be neat if we could actually get, the top teams from the OAC and the top teams from the North Coast together? And then from there, I just kind of grew that out to like, what if we could get 8 teams and we could, bring in the best from what was then the Great Lakes region, now Region 7,
Right.
but also bring in 4 teams from the rest of the country, bring in a team from the West Coast, bring in one of the Northeast teams, New England conferences, someone from the South. Um, and just kind of that was the spark. It was about the 2015, 2016 season when that came about. And I pitched the idea to a couple of coaches that I knew pretty well at the time. And 2 of them really grasped onto it. One was Hope, and then, of course, John Vanderwall at Marietta.
Yeah.
And, I think John thought I was a little bit crazy. He had trouble at the time just getting 4 teams to come to their tip-off tournament every year. And the idea of bringing in 8 teams, I think he thought was a little bit insane. So he kind of gave me the green light and said, if you can get 8 teams here, we'll figure out a way to do it. And 2 months later, I had 8 teams.
Wow.
And unfortunately, he had to back that up and we planned it and went from there. And 2017 was the first event. And this is GLI 8. So we're cruising right along here. Just missed the 1 year for the pandemic.
Yeah, GLI 8 is will start tomorrow. You have a host that won't be announced until sometime this weekend, but you have a location for GLI 9 and the whole field is set. Is that correct? When will that be announced?
Yeah, so I will announce the hosted participants for next year's event at halftime of game number 4 tomorrow. So right around 8:30 or so, as long as we stay on track schedule wise, I would expect an announcement there.
And I saw a tweet recently in the last day or so that GLI 10 is being planned and you actually have secured a host for number 10. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 10th anniversary event will be November of 27. I've got a host secured for that. Obviously, don't have any participants yet at this point, but that's a process I'll start here as we get past Christmas and stuff. So yeah, we've got a 10th anniversary event on the calendar, and just really excited to keep the ball rolling here on the GLI.
Is it pretty cool to have created this tournament and see what it's become? Because now this is a tournament where people are sort of planning their non-conference schedule around being able to get to this thing. I'm just thinking of our buddy Raul Placeres at Maryville and how much he has kind of worked to get himself in this field. And so many of these coaches that you've come in contact with that contact you need to be in this thing. I think of Redlands coming to it, trying, looking for games. It's so tough for those West Coast teams to schedule. What's it like to have created something that's become such a big deal?
Yeah, it's great. I wouldn't say that it's come with a little bit of luck. Obviously, the 2021 event really helped
Yeah.
boost the event. To have 3 of the 4 Final Four teams in that one event, that really kind of
Yeah.
brought some notoriety to the event. And at that point, from that point on, it really kind of exploded, and everyone's trying to, give calls and texts and stuff. So it's nice from a planning perspective to not have to feel like I have to beat down a lot of doors anymore. A
Yeah.
lot of coaches are reaching out, and it's nice to have your pick of programs every year. So it's gotten a little bit easier as it's gone along. And yeah, just I think as long as we can keep the quality event going, it's going to be a place where the best programs are want to continue to come.
And the format, like you said, is it always 4 Region 7 based teams and then 4 from outside of Region 7? Or is there wiggle room? Could it be 3 Region 7s, et cetera? Or is it locked in?
I've changed a little bit on this. The flexibility and the of the structure of the event, I would say I've gotten a little bit lax on as we've gone on. I don't think we're at the point, and especially since we've changed the name of the regions,
Yeah.
and we don't have the Great Lakes region anymore. I've gotten a little bit more expansive of how I view the Great Lakes region. So I'm open to the idea of having 2 Region 7 teams and 6 teams from outside.
Sure.
I'm open to the idea of a non-Region 7 team hosting the event if there's someone up in Wisconsin or Illinois that wants to host a future event. So, the mission of the event is always to get the 8 best teams you can get, and if I need to change things around to make that happen, then I can be flexible with that.
Now, on that, conversation, how close do you have to be to a Great Lake to host the Great Lakes Invitational? For example, I know a school maybe 135 miles from the shores of Lake Michigan in central Illinois. Could a team like that host the Great Lakes Invitational, or do you have to like butt right up against it like University of Chicago or Carthage? Tell me about that.
No, no, no. I in my mind, if you are in a state that touches a Great Lake,
Okay.
then that counts. So if our friends at Yeshiva want to host an event down the road, that technically could work. We could host a Great Lakes Invitational in the Big Apple. So yeah, it's pretty expansive. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, any of those schools, New York, could technically host a future GLI.
Boy, Yeshiva hosting, that would be that. Our guy Poppers is a scheduling expert, and boy, he would help you get all the teams in there. You might not have to do any work on that thing. So that's
Yeah,
another
that's a
podcast for you.
vacation for me.
That'd be easy. Let's talk about this field, and games kick off tomorrow. So day 1 is Friday, day 2 is Saturday. What's fun about the GLI, having been to the last 2, it is like if you're a D3 basketball person, it's just wall to wall. So you go 1 p.m., 1, 3, 5, 7 tomorrow, and you have these 4 great games, 8 great teams. So let's go through the schedule a little bit. The kickoff game tomorrow, Friday, 1 p.m., is Trine versus Mary Washington. Interesting matchup. And as I talk about the matchups, how do you come up with who plays who, by the way? Is there some kind of data cast formula,
Yeah,
or tell
yeah.
us about how you come up with these?
Well, Bob, you've been at many of these over the years.
Yeah,
It's usually a napkin and a beer at Fort
literally.
Wayne on, the in between off day for the Final Four. But typically, what I'm looking for is interesting matchups that we don't get to see a lot, right? Like you don't want to repeat a game that you've just seen in the tournament.
Right.
You know, if hypothetically Carthage, which is in the event this year, and Illinois Wesleyan, that's or a Wisconsin school that
Yeah.
you see quite often, you don't need to come all the way to Washington, PA to play a Wisconsin school, right? You want to see someone different, something interesting. And honestly, I love the stylistic differences of the different parts of the country. So I try to find new matchups. I try to find interesting matchups that we don't get to see often, and mixing the regions and the different geographies. And anytime I get an opportunity to do that, that's probably the way I'm going to lean. And there's also some thinking through of, who are probably going to be the best teams in the event next year, who's got the biggest aspirations, to go deep into the tournament. And if there's an opportunity where you can put together a couple of top 10, couple of top 15 teams together, those are going to be the showcase games of the event that people are going to really want to see.
So it's kind of feel based scheduling is what it is. I've been
It
there.
is.
I've seen the napkin. I've seen the beer. I've had the beer and written on the napkin. So it's also, as you start to talk about, you could just say cool things like, Coach Placeres is always wanting to get a piece of the CCIW. Let's make him play Carthage. Let's make him play Carthage and see how he likes that. There could be a lot that goes into this scheduling that's not scientific. Is that fair to
Oh
say?
yeah. You have a coach that maybe has razzed you a little bit that weekend, or
Yep.
is at the Final Four and has maybe made a comment to you about
Yeah.
something, and be having that pencil in your hand to be able to draft
Right.
their schedule for the following year is quite a power.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Actually, it's a lot of fun. So folks, join us in Fort Wayne for that process. That'll be what the Elite Eight this year that happens in Fort Wayne because the title's in Indy, so it's a little bit different this year, right?
Yeah, the Elite Eight and the Final Four games. So there's going to be a ton of basketball to watch in Fort Wayne this year.
That'll be fun. So Trine versus Mary Washington. You've got Trine with a new coach. We'll talk about that in a second. Spoiler alert, hang tight. Mary Washington, a very highly regarded team coming into the preseason. Probably in that game, I assume that we would, and I'm not asking you to answer this as the host, you probably shouldn't, but I would think Mary Washington on paper is your favorite there. We're still trying to figure out kind of what Trine is. Okay, game two. This is where you probably should put on your Pio shirt. Marietta versus Trinity of Texas. Do you root for your own team, or do you try to be like this neutral dude at the GLI?
Yeah, as tournament director, it's really hard, and I don't feel like it's fair to the other seven teams to wear the jacket or the sweatshirt and kind of be a vocal fan for this weekend. So I try to be professional at the media table. Am I honestly or realistically, in my head saying certain things, or thinking certain things, of course, but no, we keep it professional.
Well, and you and I had a very tense GLI game a couple of years ago at Wittenberg, where we had a wager on the line. Illinois Wesleyan versus Marietta for the first time in school histories playing. I think we did a pretty good job. I think we were both very nervous, but we weren't like screaming and yelling about anything, were we?
No, no, it was very cordial. I think there may have been a couple fist pumps, but that's as far as it went at the table that year.
Still like to have that last playback. Nick Roper missed that Nick Roper move for the only time his whole career. I'd like to have that back. Okay, so game three. This is at 5 p.m. Friday. This is Carthage from the CCIW versus our guy who I've mentioned, Raul Placeres, his Scots of Maryville. What a cool matchup that is. What a cool matchup. Is it fair to say Carthage is, I know you kind of unofficially seed this thing. They would have to be one of your high seeds in this thing in terms of like their preseason expectations. Fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I went into the event thinking that Carthage, having seen them last year, and then knowing what they brought back, I thought there was an opportunity to really pair them up with two really good opponents in this event. And if you look at the way it worked out, they got two top 25 opponents in this event. Obviously, Maryville tomorrow, and
Yeah.
then you look ahead to the big one with Mary Washington, two teams that really think they can go deep into the tournament,
Yep.
maybe get to Fort Wayne this year. So I think Carthage is certainly going to walk away from this event feeling like they've gotten two high quality games.
The fact that they won the CCIW last year, that's pretty relevant. That makes one a very relevant team, and they're certainly relevant this year. I hope you guys could discuss that a little bit there at the media table this year. The 7 p.m. game on Friday, so the nightcap. This is always a fun game because now the home fans are there. It's dark outside. It feels like basketball. The whole day's led up to this. Case Western Reserve University from the UAA versus the host, Washington and Jefferson. Again, what a neat matchup. And we'd expect a pretty good crowd there for that 7 p.m. game, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I've been asking around since I've been here on campus. I know they've got a lot of the other teams really excited about this event. I know they've got some activities at halftime organized for tomorrow night's game. I think both games they have some activities planned for some of the students. So they're expecting a good crowd. Obviously, Case Western and Washington, PA, even though they're relatively close, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, they really haven't played all that often. And the other thing
Right.
that's interesting is this is a family affair. You've got Todd McGinnis coming down from Case
Yeah.
Western, obviously the head coach there, and then Scott McGinnis, his brother, is the athletic director here. So
Yeah.
should be a really interesting family battle tomorrow between two guys that, having spoken to both, really want to win that game tomorrow.
Yeah. Good coaches. That's the other thing too about your event is it seems like we just see 8 great coaches every time we go to this thing. Um, Post game, Friday, are there any local watering holes or establishments that have kind of been designated as the places to meet? I don't expect that necessarily be nailed down, but if there's D3 Hoops Nations coming in wants to see you, see the Snyders, see Carl, whoever else is there. I don't know if Ryan Scott's coming. Where did they go find you guys? Do we know?
Yeah, so all teams are housed in the same hotel as we've tried to do every year.
Cool.
And this year, I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea yet, but we are attached to a casino.
Oh boy.
So
Mm,
it could be all hands. I'm fully expecting to walk down there after midnight, maybe tomorrow, and we've got 6 head coaches or
yeah.
so that are at the tables, either lamenting some losses or celebrating big wins. But I don't know if there's going to be a lot of sleep this weekend. Whoever decided the logistics on that one, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's super dicey, but I like it. I like it. Then we get to Saturday. So day 2, where we just reload and do this all over. Same schedule, 1-3-5-7 Saturday. And let me tell you about this matchup, Ryan. Marietta versus Trine. Now let me remind you something. Your coach at Marietta, John Vanderwall, left to go to another place, and that place is Trine. And so you guys with a new coach, you're facing Trine with your old coach. Serious drama, and this matchup was set before the drama happened. Is that correct?
Yeah. So behind the scenes, we filmed the announcement, the release for the schedule with the D3 Datacast. And about a half an hour after we finished recording that, the news came that Brooks Miller was leaving Trine for
Yep.
Central Michigan, Division One, which of course started the dominoes that led to John Vanderwall leaving Marietta for Trine. It led to the domino of Andy Buhai leaving Heidelberg for Marietta. And one thing you didn't mention, Andy Buhai was John Vanderwall's first assistant
Right.
coach at Marietta.
Right.
So two guys that are really close friends that are used to playing each other, in the league, Heidelberg and Marietta. But this will be a little bit different dynamic with John Vanderwall coming back to play his old school that he built from almost nothing. So I know there's communities on both sides here that are really interested about this game. Obviously, John Vanderwall took several of Marietta's players to Trine with him. So some guys that are going to be playing against some old teammates. So there's just a lot of feelings about that one,
Yeah.
I think, on both sides. And I don't know if anyone's going to be super over the top or public about it, but I know deep down there's some emotions going into that game.
Gotta be. Yeah, that's fascinating. That's incredible the way that played out. You mentioned that the 2 ranked opponents that Carthage got in this tournament. We mentioned they're playing Maryville, and then they get Mary Washington. Mary Washington, very, very highly regarded this year, ranked in the top 25. Carthage really is coming out of this thing with like 2 really quality opponents, the kind of games that can really help your NPI.
Mhm. Yeah. Mary Washington, Sweet 16 last year. They bring everyone back. So obviously a lot of expectations from us top 25 voters of what they can put together this year. I just got done watching Mary Washington practice. They're super athletic. I'm really excited to see that matchup. I know, when the full schedule came out, I think the Mary Washington Carthage game got circled by a lot of people as maybe the game of the weekend. And looking at the way the season's gone so far, that seems to be playing out. So, we could see this game again in Fort Wayne,
Yeah,
in March. I wouldn't be surprised by that type of matchup having to repeat again.
I agree. And, just knowing Carthage pretty well from the CCIW, they have a superstar, this Ryan Johnson, is a 6'7" man. His brother is a stud guard on the team. They have a kid named Riley Brooks that's a D2 transfer from a couple years ago that's a stud, and they're getting back Antoine Nesbitt, who was great 2 years ago, was hurt last year. So this is a loaded Carthage team that I had in the preseason poll on the top 25 ballot. I had them number two. I
Mhm.
had Trinity of Connecticut one and Carthage two, and I still feel like I feel good about that. So they're going to be fun to watch. And then your 5 p.m. game on Saturday is Trinity of Texas versus Case Western Reserve. Trinity, Texas. What do we know about those guys? We saw them play, I believe, in that Chicago tournament opening
Yeah.
weekend for them. Right? What do we know about them?
Yeah, so we've seen really a Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
Yep,
from Trinity that weekend, right? They looked amazing. They beat Emory by double
beat Emory.
digits, our number three team in the country in the top 25 poll, and then turn around and get hammered by Chicago the next night. So, I think Trinity's still trying to figure out Trinity a little bit and finding that consistency. Obviously, we know that they have a high ceiling. There's a lot of great players in that program. I think for them, it's being able to bring the same energy both days. Can they bring that consistency? We know they're talented. And then on the other side, Case Western interestingly picked at the bottom of the UAA this year. But from having seen them play their first couple of games, I think they have some real interesting freshmen in that program. And
Yeah,
I will be very surprised if they finished in last in the UAA. Case Western is really talented. They've got a great big guy. And Todd's best player is probably still hasn't played a game yet. So we may see him this weekend.
yeah.
So we still may not even know how good Case Western can be this year. So really interesting game there between two teams that I am guessing have not played a lot in their history. And it's
Yeah,
another one of those fascinating matchups that the GLI brings.
it is. That's a really cool one. And then the last game, again, the host, Washington and Jefferson, is in this one, and this is versus Maryville of Tennessee. Maryville is another team here coming out of this with like two really good opportunities. They get Carthage, and then they have to play the host, which is always tough. So you got to credit Maryville for looking for tough games at this tournament. And Washington and Jefferson, of course, that game should be a fun way to finish out the tournament.
Yeah, I expect the barn burner in that game. Washington and Jefferson's picked to win their league here in the PAC. Maryville obviously picked to win their league. Two teams in conferences that traditionally have been one bid leagues, but tend to have really good conference champions that get to the NCAA tournament. So this is kind of one of those games from teams from those types of conferences that are looking for really good out of conference
Yeah.
games, and I think they're both going to get one with that one.
In terms of your role, so you've been there today, I assume, kind of welcoming people into practices and handing out swag. Are you feeling like you're on the downhill slide of your duties, or is just the anxiety just starting at this moment? I mean, where are you at in this scale of nervousness?
Yeah, you know me from years past. I put a lot of energy and effort into this weekend, and that tends to wear on me a little bit physically. Just trying to make sure everything goes perfectly. Everyone's into practices at the right times, making sure everyone's taken care of. Um, Again, getting all the materials and the swag to the student athletes, and that kind of tries to separate this event from the others on the D3 calendar. But as far as on the once today is over and the practices are over, knowing tomorrow we've got to just sit and watch 8 great basketball games the rest of the weekend.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to be past that point of the hardest work is complete. A lot of the work really just kind of goes in the build up to this, designing the logo, making sure all the stuff is in on
right.
time, making sure the hotels are set. That's really the logistical nightmare that is mostly all complete once we get here for the weekend.
It's a first class thing. I've been to the last two, and boy, can't say enough about everything that goes into it. It is from the swag that you give away to the organization, the opportunities for the coaches to get together. It feels like big time basketball, which it is. And kudos to you. I had to send you a note a little earlier this week to say that I couldn't make it, which killed me because I love being there. Once I kind of committed to the Nick Roper Bowl last night, I've already made two flights. I'm already two flights into the season. It just got really hard to get there. So I apologize to the guys that I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be watching every game. Looking forward to that. Who's going to be there? So I assume our guys from the DataCast, the Snyders, will be there. Is that fair?
Yeah, DataCast guys are in first thing in the morning. I think they're driving down from Michigan. Carl is en route as we speak.
D3
I think
Direct.
D3 Direct is in the air. I've got the limousine sent up to go pick
Yep.
him up at the airport here in about an hour. I think we're going to grab dinner tonight. I think Ryan Scott is coming to
Cool.
represent D3 Hoops at the event. So we've got a really good cross section of different media guys from across the country that are going to help cover the event this weekend.
Really cool. So Ryan Scott will be on the d3hoops.com side. So like the around the nation work, he's been doing some, for lack of a better word, podcast type stuff in the preseason, which was really cool. So check all that stuff out. We know the DataCast guys, and they have a weekly release every Monday of their show, which is great. And Carl's just crushing it with everything he's doing, helping kids who are trying to find their way and navigate the recruiting process in Division 3. So yeah, hope to hear from all you guys. We'll be checking, X and wherever else that you guys are putting your stuff, d3hoops.com and all that stuff. Ryan, anything else before we go? One more reminder. When do we learn about GLI 9? What day and time did you say that was?
Yeah, so we'll learn GLI 9 host and participants at halftime of the Case Western Washington and Jefferson game tomorrow evening.
Okay, so the final game tomorrow, halftime of that. So that's a cool moment. I mean, everyone should tune in to see who's going to be in this thing next year. That's really fun. Just kudos to you, my friend, and then I'll kick it to you for any final words. But this, I always refer to it as the best tournament in Division 3. It's not meant to slight any other tournaments. It's just that you've got 8 teams, and there's never a bad team in it. There's never like a who. It's 8 premier programs and teams, and so it's really it's an amazing tournament. Kudos for all the work that you've put into this. Amazing job. What do you want to leave GLI fans, D3 Nation? What do you want to leave everyone today, Ryan Whitnable on the QCast?
First, I just appreciate the time. Obviously, going to miss you this weekend. Your presence at the events really gets all the student athletes excited and just adds a different vibe to the event. So we're going to miss that this week. Although you could have caught a ride with Jim Haney, who's on his way
I
here
know.
from
I thought
the
about
Shirk
that.
Center last night. So
He was
could have
there.
caught a ride there, but no, nothing extra from me. Just really excited to host the event. I think all of us do what we do in this space because we love the coaches, we love the communities around these schools, we love the student athletes, and we've all got our little niche that we try to give back to the level and just trying to shine a spotlight on these programs that so often get overshadowed in the overall sports world. So whether it's the QCast or the DataCast and the analytics side or the D3 Hoops guys. For me, my niche is trying to put on one of the best tournaments in the country to show off the student athletes and programs to the country. So looking forward to a great weekend and excited for all the hoops and hopefully you guys will be tuning in.
Very well said about niches and specialties, and that's what makes this great. Kind of a little volunteer army of sorts of media, and it makes it a lot of fun. Uh, that's Ryan Whitnable. He's the founder and the tournament director of the Great Lakes Invitational, which kicks off tomorrow in Washington, Pennsylvania, on the campus of Washington and Jefferson. The first game is at 1 p.m. and it is wall to wall 1357 tomorrow. Same thing Saturday. Ryan, we will be tuned in. We'll be looking for your stuff on X as well, updates and things. Great to see you, and best of luck.
Thanks, Bob.